Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video where we are going to be talking about 5 tips that I think every single Morgana player needs to know. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is LowFit. I do educational content, I do tip videos, do guide videos, and do opposition reports where I go over how to beat particular champions. If you're curious about my experience, I've peaked at Diamond 3 promos. I'm not really the best micro player. I don't really give out too many micro tips. I've been able to climb to Diamond just off of kind of game knowledge and decision making, so that's why my guys are kind of a little bit more oriented towards that vein of thinking. I've been playing Morgana for years. She's always been a really safe blind pick that I've liked to pick up, and in the mid and bot lane. She's gotten a couple nerfs, couple buffs over the past. I think they made her W a little bit more expensive for the mana, but I think she's actually in a really good spot after this rework because they have only added to her kit and made her stronger. They haven't made her weaker in any respect, so that is great. I want to talk, for our first tip, I want to go over effective Morgana picks. Now, she's going to struggle if she's just up against a bunch of people that have a lot of consistent damage, but where Morgana really shines is with people with extremely strong abilities like a Fizz ult that is kind of like a one shot that does a lot of damage, and if you can prevent one big engagement tool, maybe a Malphite ult, this is where Morgana can really shine. If it's a hook champion, Morgana is great into the bot lane, so always look to pick Morgana into people with high impact abilities that are really important for engaging. Also, she's an extremely safe blind pick in the mid lane and a really good counter pick into champions like LeBlanc. I think that is one of the most famous counter picks. I think Faker took it out once against Pawn in a LCK finals game. So you can always look to utilize her in different roles. I personally have her as a counter pick for the mid lane, as we went over, and then for the top lane, she's actually my favorite pick into Singed because you just really prevent any kind of flip going on him, and then you can root him, and it really prevents him to just being able to run away, so you have great gank assist on him. And then in the bot lane, I really like taking him into things like Blitz and Thresh, so and Braum is another really good pick for Morgana, so keep those in mind when you're looking to pick up Morgana, as she does have a lot of really strong picks for her. She's a great blind pick and a great counter pick, so it really takes a very particular set of champions to do well into Morgana. Things that you might struggle a little bit against are things like Master Yi that can just go invulnerable when you throw out your Q and then have a lot of continuous damage if you're unable to get them with your ult, because you're usually not able to proc your ult stun before the Master Yi is able to kill you, and he can just invulnerable your Q. So that is just kind of all of like my basic thoughts on picking Morgana and kind of the champion select. I'm going to start doing this with my tip videos. The first one is usually going to be just the best times to pick that particular champion that I'm talking about that day. So that will wrap up tip number 1. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm always extremely open to this. I'm going to put a link to my Discord if you have any questions, or just hit me up with a comment down below and I will make sure to get around to it. Okay, and jumping in for tip number 2, I want to go over her ultimate, because this is really the best way to carry games, is by getting off really strong ultimates in team fights. First little thing I wanted to talk about, Nimbus Cloak is a great ability, or rune, that you can take when you are playing Morgana, because it helps you guarantee your ultimate, and not exactly guarantee, but you're going to hit a higher percentage of ultimates when you have the higher increased movement speed. They added more movement speed also, so you can just be running at an insane clip once you press your ultimate, and then also you get the slow with the tether. That's always been there, but it should provide you with a lot of ability to lock people down with your ultimate. One thing I want to talk about though, when you are in a team fight, is you generally want to wait for people to use their mobility spells in to engage and then use your ultimate. You do not want to be that Morgana that tries to get an ultimate on a bunch of people and then they use their mobility spells out and you overextend. This is a really poor spot that I see a lot of Morganas dying, and what you want to do is try and be a little bit more of a counter engage as opposed to engagement yourself, unless you know that they're immobile champions without flash. Then Morgana can be a pretty important just engagement tool. You always want Zhonya's if you are looking to dive in like this, and this is going to be an extremely strong peel tool as well. So if you have a really high priority target like an Azir or a Kog'Maw in the back line that it really is going to be able to carry the team fight if they can go untouched, this is a great ability to use on the divers that try and kill your back line, so keep that in mind. Also, a couple other small things with the ultimate is putting your E on yourself is going to prevent people from stunning and slowing you off of them while they get away from your ultimate stun. So a decent ultimate, if there's no one else that has a threat on them currently, would be to put your black shield on yourself and go in like this, and making sure to get people down with both your movement speed from your Nimbus Cloak, movement speed from your ultimate, and your CC prevention from your shield. If you have any questions about engaging with Morgana or counter engaging, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be happy to help you out. Also, and just a little caveat, it is really ideal to either wait for your ultimate slow to be on people to throw out your Q when you are looking to use your ultimate, or wait until the stun is finished. And here, let's time it so it's good. So you want to wait for the stun to go off, and then as soon as the stun wears off and that white line is done, you want to throw the root on them, guaranteeing your Q to hit because they're a stationary target. So keep that in mind, that your ultimate can really augment your Q's accuracy. That will wrap up tip number 2 for Morgana. Alright, and jumping into tip number 3. Now, I know I have covered this in a previous Morgana video where I talked about the tips, but I know that there's going to be some more people that are going to be looking at this video that necessarily didn't really necessarily see my previous video with Morgana, that they're just kind of new to the channel. So I'm going to talk a little bit about landing skill shots in general, but it's going to be very specific to Morgana, as she has a slow moving, everyone knows about Morgana's Q and how you really cannot get hit by it, or else it usually means a pick or you're going to die. So how I want you guys to throw your Qs is look for people going against walls. If you're down in the bot lane, it'd be a wall like there or there. Usually people like hugging walls for some reason in League of Legends. They don't like going in the middle of the lane where there's a lot of freedom to move. So what you can look to do is throw your Q where you're just barely putting that line where they would dodge to the left, but making sure to put as much of the skill shot to the right where there is the open space for him to dodge, and it is going to clip them and really prevent them from really getting any kind of dodge positioning. Because as you can see here with this Q, even if you just clip them with the sides of the line, you still hit them because it's a rather fat skill shot. I think I mean, look at how much you can throw. Oh my god. Yeah, so it has to be that far away, so that make sure that you're not really going by the reticule, but more going by how fat the skill shot is. And usually they're going to have a rather bigger hitbox than this. I think this is taking a Teemo hitbox, so make sure that you're putting your Q into the area where they can dodge. Obviously, this is a dead zone where you can't dodge, so you want to lead them to the right when throwing out your Q. If you have any questions with landing skill shots with Morgana, hit me up and I will try and help you out and maybe explain it a little better for you. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and let's get into tip number 4. Now I want to talk about Morgana has a very unique ability as a bot laner. If you are able to push the enemy to the tower and you are unable to dive them, what I want you to start thinking about is getting those deep wards for the bot lane, which is really important to do when the enemy is distracted and you can see as many people as possible, and try and ward out the enemy jungler, which is going to help out the rest of your team. But one other small thing that you can do with Morgana is, just because her kit has such a long route, you're able to just destroy scuttle crabs, because you're able to do that increased amount of damage when the scuttle is CC'd, and you get a large amount of gold. Now, if your jungler is close and looking to take it, you can help him secure it, or if your jungler isn't close and maybe the enemy jungler is probably going to get it, you want to take the scuttle for yourself. It might take a little bit of time investment, but always look to do it when there is a little bit of dead zone. Maybe there's a ADC that's backed and you still have full life and mana and you don't really have a big back, so this would be a great time to take a scuttle, or when the all your minions are pushed to their tower and there's no chance to dive. So keep that in mind. She has great gank assist and invade assist. So if your enemy or if your ally jungler is looking like they might want to invade, and you have some dead time, really look to help augment your jungler, because Morgana is so good with stopping your ally from getting CC'd and then CC'ing your enemies. And really, this is going to be a great way to snowball the early game, getting yourself a little bit more gold, getting your allies a little bit more warding. And she's just all around such a great pick, and so many different things you can do. You should never feel as Morgana that you're unable to do anything. That will wrap up this tip. If you want any tips about roaming or anything, you can hit me up in the comments down below. Alright, and for the final tip, we're actually just going to cram a bunch of really small tips that have just kind of come along as I've played a shitload of Morgana games. First up, Morgana is absolutely insane into Pyke. I want you to keep this in mind. Pyke is a kind of a little bit on the verge of being a meta pick in the support lane right now in solo queue, and the reason why Morgana is so good into Pyke is you shield off his hook. You're able to see him with your soul shackles that gives you the sight, so he can't really get away with his W, and then you're able to root him after he throws out his E, and you know where his E is going to end. So keep that in mind. Morgana is a great pick into that. Now I want to go over itemization for Morgana. She is really versatile in what you're trying to do. If you are looking, if maybe you're snowballing, you got a couple kills in lane, your ADC wasn't able to pick them up, you can look to be a little bit more aggressive with your item builds. You can maybe rush a Zhonya's. I wouldn't recommend a Void Staff, but you can go a little bit more AP heavy. Maybe something like a Shirelius to help even more with your engagements. It can be really strong when you have a lot of gold at your disposal. But if you have a ADC that is doing extremely well, and is maybe a hyper carry, and you do not have too much gold on yourself, you want to look to augment your ADC as much as possible with things like Redemption. Zeke's are going to be extremely strong, and then obviously Locket and Athene's are going to be good as well. There's a couple good items in here for Morgana, but you should really look at what your team needs. Zeke's is going to be really good with hyper carries. They're going to give them a little bit more damage and give you a slow. Even further, you can just make your ultimate just this inescapable thing with a Zeke slow and then a Shirelius speed up with Nimbus cloak. It's just really can be such a punishing ability when you're playing Morgana, so you can look to augment that quite a bit. And then obviously there's three paths. You can go supportive, you can go really heavy damage, and then you can go more of a single target prevention with things like Knight's Vow, with things like Athene's. You can go things like Ardent Censor if you want to give them a little bit more damage. So it's just really look to be flexible with your build and build for the game state and what your enemy's doing and what your allies are doing. Try to apply some critical thinking to it, and I think there's a lot that's going to come out of playing Morgana. Don't be one of those terrible people in bronze or iron that just build the same build over and over again because they watch one LCS game where their favorite player built that build path. It is really only going to be good for that certain thing. The only one caveat would be just ADC players usually have to build the same 3 crit items at the start. But that will wrap up my video. If you guys enjoyed the content, please remember to like and subscribe. As always, guys, take it easy.